Hello, and welcome to a very special, spooky, scary edition of the Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank, and I'm Grave Zangaro.
How long did it take you to come up with that?
I just came up with that. Pretty good, right?
That was okay.
The scariest thing we might talk about today is actually Howie's trade deadline history. We'll get to that in a little bit. We do have a lot to talk about today. I got a chance to catch up with Jahan Dotson, who was the big trade before the season, has not quite worked out. We'll talk a little Doug Pederson coming back to town on Sunday, Eagles-Jaguars matchups, and then we have a bunch of questions to get to at the end. Sound good?
Sounds good.
But first,
yes.
Ever a big Halloween guy?
When I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have like a favorite Halloween costume?
I went to a Halloween party as James Taylor once.
Okay.
It was
as a child when you liked Halloween?
No, I think it was like a older person.
Okay.
Grown-up party. I'm not going to get into the details, but it didn't work. It was a failed.
Didn't work.
I liked it, but nobody else really understood it.
So it's tough when you have to explain a costume.
It's not good. Not a good sign.
Yeah. All right. We'll get into it a little bit. Maybe we'll talk Halloween at the end.
Can't wait.
All right. Let's talk trade deadline, though. Comes on Tuesday, November 5th. Another date for, it's a date that people are worried about, but it's trade deadline for the Eagles. Do we think Howie's going to make a move?
I don't. Mm-hmm. At least not a significant move. I mean, he's always a chance he could do something, but as far as giving away a third or fourth or fifth, even, I just don't see it. I don't think there's a glaring need anywhere that makes it, you don't make that move unless you feel like you're a playoff team, which they do. You feel like you're a contender, which they do, but you have one area where you're just really, really concerned about. And they certainly have areas that aren't as good, but I don't think they have an area that's worth a third or fourth round pick to fix or to help or to maybe help and maybe not help. And I think Howie's track record on a lot of things is really good, but on these moves, it's not so good. So I'd be surprised if there's a significant move, but with Howie, you never know because he likes making moves.
Yeah. On Tuesday's podcast, we talked about Vic Fangio a little bit. I thought his comments were kind of telling.
Yeah.
He just brought up how difficult it is to integrate a player midstream, but then he also said like the kind of lower level moves don't typically seem to work out in the favor of the team making them. We've certainly seen that here. He said it's a little different if it's like a big swing at a player who's going to be here for a long time, but those deals don't come easy or cheap. Like you're going to have to give away a lot to get a marquee player.
Yeah. And you better be sure that you can sign him or that signing him is part of the deal, that you have a deal done. If it's a guy, I mean, there's really very few cases where you want to give up a third, fourth pick for a rental for 10 games. It would be 9 games. They did move the deadline back, and there was talk about moving it back even farther, even later. I guess at the owners' meetings, that was a topic. But
I like that, by the way. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I agree. But I really just don't see anything happening. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I think it's probably unlikely. I think they've already made their trade deadline move before the season. We'll get to that.
And they don't have a ton of picks. It's not like he's got all these extra thirds and fourths. He doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Let's go through their history in recent years. 2017, they nailed it. They got Jay Ajayi. He really helped them in that stretch run. And it wasn't even like Jay Ajayi came here and was like Pro Bowl level player. I mean, he was good, but he was a part of a rotation that year. And then
averaged 5'8" after he got here.
He was good, but it wasn't like he was the bell cow. He was still a part of that rotation.
Yeah, I think his knees didn't allow him to be a bell cow. Like he didn't get a lot of carries. He would get like 8 carries a game and get you 50, 60 yards. I mean, he was very good. I thought he was a good. They didn't really use Corey Clement that much that during the season. I mean, he was mainly.
It was a lot of Garrett.
Yeah, it was LeGarrette, and I think Small was probably the 3 until the postseason or late in the season. But I thought the Blunt Ajayi combo was a good one. It was a really good one, and they were pretty hard to stop once they got Ajayi. He's an interesting guy too. I like him.
Yeah, I always made the joke that it was nice to get turned down for an interview in a British accent. It was always I always appreciated it.
Yeah.
But so that one worked. 4th round pick in 2017. He helps them win a Super Bowl. Obviously, that one works. Then the next year, you're trying to do it again. You're trying to like catch that magic from 17, and they give up a 3rd round pick for Golden Tate. Now you can make the argument that it worked because he caught a touchdown in the playoffs,
Game-winning touchdown in the 4th down.
Yeah,
in the
but he
quarter.
also didn't know the play,
Yes.
and it just kind of worked.
Yeah.
I kind of put that in the it didn't work category.
Did catch more passes than I remember. I think he caught 28 or something over the rest of the season, but not for a lot of yards. I don't think he made a big impact.
30 catches for 278 yards, 1 touchdown with the Eagles that year.
Yeah. So 30 catches in what, 7 games?
8 games.
8 games. It's a lot of catches.
Yeah, but he wasn't exactly what they thought he was going to be.
No.
In 7 games with the Lions, he had 44 for 517 and 3 touchdowns. He was a big part of that offense, and he came here and I'll never forget the Mike Groh quote. You remember this? He admitted it was difficult to integrate him into the offense.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was my question, and I kind of felt bad. I wasn't trying to trick Mike Groh, but yeah.
Yeah, that kind
it was, though. It was tough to
that
integrate
went
him.
viral. And I think it always is.
Mhm.
And yeah, I consider that a disappointing move, even though, I mean, it's kind of crazy game-winning touchdown at the end of a playoff game, but yeah, it just kind of was fluky.
It felt that way.
Yeah.
Give him credit for it, but
yeah, we sat at his locker. He's like, I didn't know the play. I figured it out as the play was happening. I think he said that was an odd one, but I put that, and they gave up a 4 for him.
a 3.
A 3. Yeah, definitely not a good move.
Yeah. And then 2019, this one was a little different because Jannard Avery had 2 years left on his deal. It wasn't a rental, but they gave up a 4 for Jannard Avery.
3.5 sacks in parts of 3 seasons.
Yeah,
right?
and it was funny because like I this is when I kind of got talked into when they made it. So I'm like, okay, like a youngish edge rusher seems to have some juice if they have the right way to use him. But he was such a specific player that to me, that one was like a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff, because the front office sees these tools, but if the coaching staff doesn't have a way to implement it, it's no good.
Didn't he have one game where he had like 8 quarterback hits or something, like against the 49ers or something? I thought he had one really good game, but
well, he had 7 quarterback hits in 11 games that year. Ended up with a sack and a half, and then he played the next year, and he played 16 games, had 12 starts.
yeah, he's just never made an impact.
Yeah, he is in the league. He's with the Colts right now.
How many years in the league for Jannard Avery now?
6.
6 years in the league.
Mm-hmm.
How many sacks does he have? Like 5?
Want to take a real guess?
I would say 9.5.
8.5. Pretty close.
I got the half right.
Yeah. Yeah, but like at the time, I kind of got talked into that because you get 2 years, and he's a young player who might still be ascending, so it felt more than a rental.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't work out.
No.
And then they did make a big deadline move for a while. 2022, Robert Quinn for a 4th.
That went really well.
That was one at the beginning, like when they made the choice. Okay, like I can kind of see this. And then the first time we talked to Robert Quinn, I was out on it.
He just seemed disinterested from the moment he got here.
I mean, he was talking about how tough it was to like move, and like it seemed like he didn't want to be here.
Yeah. And he's a guy who had 17 sacks a year before, 17 and a half.
Yeah. And with him, like his whole career was kind of like that. He'd have this big year and then a big drop off, and then a big year and then a big drop off.
I think I looked this up once. He set the record for biggest drop in sack total. I think he had 1 for the Bears before he came here, right? So he went from 17 and a half to 1.
Yeah.
I think it broke the record set by Tim Harris the year he came here.
He had 18 and a half in 2021.
18 and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had an 18 and a half sack year in 2021 and a 19 sack year in 2013. It's pretty unbelievable to have like those big years that far apart.
Yeah, and not do much the other years.
No, I mean, he had 1, 2, 3 other years with double digits.
Tim Harris had 17 sacks for the 49ers in 92. Eagles signed him to a big contract, and he had no sacks in 4 games, and they cut him. They cut him like a month into the season. He was so bad. He went back to San Francisco and became a starter. Sometimes, and when you talk about these trades, I think Vic made like for a lot of these guys, I mean, Robert Quinn shouldn't have said what he said, but like I think for a lot of these guys, like you're with the same team for 8 years, same city, your kids are going to school there. All of a sudden you're in Philadelphia.
But he was someone who had bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been
but
like
in general, I don't think it's easy. And I think that's one of the reasons it doesn't work very often, because I think it's hard to uproot yourself in the middle of a season. I just think it's all of a sudden you're in a new building. Some guys are able to function like that, but some can't. Robert Quinn struck me as a guy who, like you said, he had just no desire to be here, and it showed in his play. I mean, he was awful.
Yeah, he wasn't very good.
Yeah, I don't want to. I've never questioned guys' effort, but he wasn't real interested in playing football for the Philadelphia Football Eagles.
2023 last year, Kevin Byard, they gave up a 5th, a 6th, and Terrell Edmonds, which is kind of a throw in the deal. He probably would have gotten released anyway.
Terrell Edmonds has been with 4 teams since he left the Eagles.
It's amazing.
I think he's with the Steelers now. That was a year ago. Byard wasn't a complete disaster, but like he was a functional player. He
was kind of the like the canary in the coal mine, telling us how messed up everything was.
Yeah.
Like he came here and was like, what the heck is going on basically with this defense? So like if they were to bring him in and there was more stability with that defense, it might have worked out okay. But it was just such a disaster.
Yeah. And I think he's playing well. He's playing pretty well now. But yeah, I mean, everything was falling apart around him. And there was just all those. It's probably not fair to lump him in with like the Shaq, what was his name? Shaq Leonards and, Zach Cunninghams and Nicholas Morrows. And
Zach Cunningham put out good tape now.
So not good enough to get him a job. But when Howie said that, we thought he was going to sign him. But there was just all those guys who just were on 1-year deals, had just gotten here, signed in the middle of the season, had no connection to the team or the city. And when you have one guy like that, 2 guys, they had a whole defense filled with those guys. And Byard there was no way to excel in that atmosphere, and he didn't.
It is fun. It's fun when they make these trades.
They give up a 5, a 6, and a player.
And Edmonds,
yeah. So look, those are significant picks. I mean, 5, 5 and a 6, but and we've seen Howie, the opportunity to get a player that you're going to have for 4 years at least, part-time starter, good special teamer in the 4th round, you expect, possible starter. 3rd round, you kind of expect a starter. And to get a guy for 2 months for a pick like that, you better be pretty sure you're going to nail it, and they haven't.
Yeah, and you got to be sure that like you're actually a team that you think can contend.
Sure.
That's what the whole goal is. And I think it does send a good message at times when you kind of put the chips in and say, hey, I believe in this team. Like the front office believes in us. They brought in another player to help us, but there are so many other dynamics at play, whether it's in the locker room, on the field, within the offense or defense, that make it really difficult.
Yeah. And you look at like how long it takes guys to pick up a defense or an offense in training camp, OTAs. Try to do that in 2 months. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. So let's talk about this trade deadline. I don't think any trade on offense really makes sense. You could argue receiver, but they already traded to get Jahan Dotson. It hasn't worked out so far, but they made that trade. It's hard to imagine them doing another one. And there's not really another position on offense to trade for.
I don't think so.
I mean, tight end would be one, but they're getting good play from Grant Calcaterra now. And they had all off season to upgrade a tight end if they really wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really, I mean, on paper you say, they need a 3rd receiver, but you can't just keep giving up picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have their own 1 and 2 next year. They have 2 3s, one of which is going to go to the to Washington. I guess it's going to be the better of the 2. They have their own in Miami's. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a 4 and 3 5s.
Yep.
And then they don't have a 6 or a 7. So, it's just not. It's like a lot of years how he goes into this with like 3 3s, 2 4s, a couple 5s, a 6, a 7. Not this year. So I think that makes it even less likely.
Yeah. So probably nothing on offense. On defense, like you feel really good about the cornerbacks. I think you feel okay about the safeties now with Sidney Brown back in the mix.
James Bradbury getting healthier by the minute.
Yeah. Linebacker, like it's a position on paper where they're not great, I guess, but they're getting good play. Like they've been good on the field, and I know you're working on a story about the two linebackers. Like they're playing well together, and it doesn't mean there won't be some uneven games, but to add a linebacker midstream and kind of mess up with what this defense has cooking wouldn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and they seem to like Trot as a back. I mean, if you got a linebacker, it would be a backup. They seem to like Trot. Van Sumeren, I'm not sure he's even a linebacker right now, but I think they like him as a linebacker, as a prospect.
And don't forget Warren Burks, who has some experience.
And there's Warren Burks. I think he got in at the end of the game Sunday for a few snaps. So I just don't see it.
Yeah. So it really comes down to the defensive line.
Yeah.
And I think specifically the edge, right? Like I think defensive tackle, they probably have enough, especially with Moro Ojimo playing well. You feel like, and Thomas Booker's getting decent snaps. I don't think the only guy, a defensive tackle, and I've been talking about him for a long time, is Calais Campbell. Like he's 38, and I know it's crazy, but to bring in a veteran like that would make some sense to me. I wouldn't give up a bunch for him, but if it's a move like that, I could kind of see it.
Yeah, it'll be, for a rotational guy, it's probably a position you could come in and
add a veteran to that group.
Yeah, that's would make some sense.
Now, edge rusher is different. So you have Josh Sweat, who I think has been playing pretty well this year. You have Bryce Huff, who has been turning a corner, but probably still disappointing given the contract. Nolan Smith, who's really turned it on. Brandon Graham, who's playing better than anyone thought he'd play at 36 years old. And then Jalix Hunt, who hasn't played very much, but we think offers some juice. It would be like if you added an edge player, who loses snaps there?
Yeah, I think it would be Huff, but I don't know if you want to do that at this point if he's starting to play better and you invested a lot of money in him. I mean, it's not going to be Nolan who's coming on as the third guy. BG's playing really well. No,
it could be BG. You could say, hey, we'll take a little bit of load off of you.
But he doesn't have that big a load.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not playing that many snaps. He's able to handle it. And you're certainly not going to take snaps away from Sweat, who's played well finally over the last month. It would surprise me because, I mean, on paper you say, well, it would be Bryce Huff, but you just paid him.
Yeah. And it's not like the coaching staff would be the ones pulling off this trade. It will be the guy that just signed Bryce Huff, and Howie is very aware of the perception of those.
Sure is. Yeah. Yeah. So it would surprise me. They could probably use the help, but also I think there's the sense that some of these guys are turning the corner, like you said. And is this really the time you want to maybe play Bryce Huff less when maybe you're starting to get something out of him?
Yeah, it's fascinating because it'll tell us what they think about these guys and whether or not this is real. Like, is this real Nolan Smith? Or do they think that he can be a real contributor?
Right.
Same with Bryant. Like, I think he's obviously a contributor, but can he be kind of a productive rusher of the passer?
Rusher of the passer. I also think you can't have a 5-man rotation. That's not going to work. It's too many guys. It's too many roster spots on game day. So, yeah. I
jotted down a few names.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, the big swings here and the guys people are talking about are Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. Those would be massive moves. Like, we're talking first-round picks involved, I think.
Yeah.
For players who would be here and be starters and be, potentially cornerstones of the franchise. They're still young enough, or you'd have them for the next 4 years, 5 years, whatever it would be. Those moves are tough to pull off. I think they're worth the phone call.
Sure.
I think it's unlikely, but anytime a player of that caliber becomes available, you owe it to yourself to make the call.
Yeah, and obviously BG not going to be here. Well, who knows? He might be here for another 10 years, but at some point you're going to have to think about adding to that group if you don't want to do it now. But there's a lot of money involved, a lot of picks, great players. I'm still skeptical. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I think it'd be tough to pull off a move like that. But yeah, you have to at least talk about it.
Yeah.
And then a few other names, Adarius Smith, who we saw earlier this season, 32 years old. He's playing well for the Browns right now. He has 5 sacks in 8 games. I wouldn't let Robert Quinn completely turn you off from a veteran edge rusher, because there have been some good veteran edge rushers. Now you already have one.
Yeah.
So do you want to add a 32-year-old to that mix?
Probably not.
Yeah. Baron Browning, who's younger than that, plays for the Broncos, has played for Vic Fangio. It wouldn't cost much. But then again, like, do you want a deep end of the rotation type of guy?
He was just on IR, right? He had a knee.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's back playing again. So you want to look into that. But he's a young guy.
Had a really productive not really productive, but productive couple of years the last few seasons.
Yeah. It's an interesting name.
Yeah. How about Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, who's been playing really well? They've needed him because Kayvon Thibodeau's been out, but Thibodeau's the future at that position for them.
Yeah.
If I'm them, I keep Ojulari around, but he's a good player. He's a final year of his rookie contract. So if he's someone who they think they can't resign, maybe he becomes available. They probably don't love the idea of trading him in division.
Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, especially after Saquon, he just signs here.
Yeah.
That might be a bad look.
Yeah. Shane might not take any phone calls from Howie for a while.
Yeah.
Then there's Arden Key and Harold Landry from the Titans. I mean, this is what you're doing. Like I think the teams kind of probably do this process similarly, and they have more insight. But like, we're looking at bad teams who have good players, and who might be expendable. And the Titans aren't very good right now.
What about players that Howie might trade for picks?
I don't see any. Do you think there are some?
If there's a team out there that likes Avonte Maddox, maybe.
You think that? Then what are you getting?
I mean, Howie doesn't have a 6 or a 7.
Okay, I mean, I could kind of see that. Then you can, like, Sidney Brown will be your obvious, like, dime package guy. I just, based on the tape Avonte put out this year, I don't know if
I agree, but I'm just,
No, he's maybe the one. I was asked this question the other day about the cornerbacks, and I was like, I don't think they're giving up like a Keely Ringo or an Isaiah Rodgers. Like, those guys are.
If somebody offers you something for Eli Ricks,
sure, you maybe do that.
You do that.
Then again, like, is it more valuable to have a 6th-round pick that could turn into Eli Ricks or Eli Ricks? I know you get a couple extra years.
Yeah, I mean, you go into saying, well, if Slay's gone, now you have, and you got to remember Isaiah Rodgers is not signed, so you look at that cornerback position. The guys who are signed are the rookies and Keely. So that's a consideration too. I'm just throwing out names because
the Avonte one actually does make some sense if you get anything for him.
That's the only one,
because he's a veteran. Like, he could maybe go somewhere and play. Like, so he'd be on board. You have to be careful about, like, right now the chemistry is good with this team. The vibes are good. Careful about trading away players. That one might be okay because he'd be potentially going to a place where he could play. Yeah.
And look, he has some good film out there for a lot of years. He was a good player. So maybe there's a team that thinks you bring him in for a workout. What was going on in Philly? Well, I was just coming off some injuries, and I don't know. There could be a team that likes him.
Yeah, I don't see anything else that would make sense.
No.
Someone was asking me about offensive line. I was like, this team is not in the business of trading offensive line.
No.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me about Gainwell because, he's not signed after this year. You make Shipley the number 2. He's the number 2 back's not going to play that much anyway with Saquon. No.
They're not doing that.
No.
Yeah, I'd be shocked by that.
Yeah, same.
Okay. That's trade deadline. I did bring up that I think Jahan Dotson is their trade deadline move. It just happened to happen in August. And I talked to him about that a little bit yesterday, that and he's pretty grateful that he didn't get traded during the season for a lot of the reasons we were talking about earlier. He said it'd be really tough to just pick up and move. It's hard to imagine him being less productive right now. And that's not a shot at him. It's just like, by the numbers, he's the least productive receiver in the NFL.
Right.
What do you make of all that? Like, I was impressed yesterday talking to him about his attitude. He said that earlier in his career, this would really bother him. He'd be mad about not getting targets and not producing, but he seems to just be waiting for his opportunities. He told me that he thinks scramble drills can be a place where he thinks he can make some plays. which does make some sense.
Yeah.
When you think that, okay, like this offense is going to run through 11-6 and 88 when he's back. They're going to design plays to get them the ball. But when the design breaks down, all of a sudden, maybe he can get open. I don't know. It's been way less than anyone thought.
Yeah, you don't give up a third-round pick for scramble drills.
Yeah.
That's really a shame. But, I mean, he's a good kid. He's got a great attitude. He works hard. Jalen made a point of bringing up that play where he dragged his feet. He said, I've never seen him drag his feet before. The one on the first down on the left sideline against the Browns. He was just kind of saying, when he had to make a play, he made a play. He seems to have trust in him, but then the games come and go and you don't see anything. So, usually when a guy, I mean, we know he has talent. He had over 1,000 yards in 2 seasons, maybe not what you want from a first-round pick or high first-round pick, but he can play. It's just not happening here. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is Jalen and the trust factor with his targets. We've talked about this, feels like every single podcast, but it takes a while for him to really trust players, and he just doesn't have that time with Jahan. And I know they went through it, like when Dotson got here, they were spending extra time after practice. There was that one practice at his first practice, I think, was at the Link, and the other buses left, and they were still out there on the field trying to get some extra throws in. But it's tough to just duplicate an entire spring and summer in a few days.
Yeah, some guys can do it. I mean, we're talking about what's his name from the Bears that they signed in 2018, Golden Tate from the Lions. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're thinking he was ineffective. He caught 28 passes, and Jahan Dotson's got 35 yards in 7 games, healthy, getting snaps. I think, what did he play? 28 snaps Sunday?
To be fair, the Eagles have better top options now than they did then.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, we thought that was disappointing. Like, you would take that production now you take Golden Tate production now.
Absolutely.
From Dotson.
What's your read on it? Because, I mean, the one thing about Dotson that's different is there are 2 years left on his deal. So they have him this year and next year. Early returns, obviously not good. But do you think they can recoup the value with him?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything to tell me yes. Maybe with a full OTA and a full off season and training camp and us, an off season thrown with Jalen, maybe, but it's hard to imagine from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah,
I think I don't know if he'll ever recoup the full value of it. I think he can be like better than this.
I mean, I thought if he came,
he's been better than this in the league.
Yeah,
and he's a young player.
That's what I was just saying, and I think if he had like 22 yards a game, I'd be like, okay, that's, not great production, but be okay. 22, 25. He's got 35 for the year. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad. He has the lowest yards per route run in the NFL among qualified players.
Yeah. So we'll see. Be interesting.
All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we'll talk about Doug Pederson coming back to town, Eagles-Jags matchups, and we'll get to your questions.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Dougie P back in the building on Sunday. Rube, there was a moment not that long ago I was not so sure Doug would be with the Jaguars when they made this trip.
Yeah, and you just look at the big picture. They did have a couple winning seasons, 9 and 8 seasons with Doug, but certainly hasn't gone in 4 years the way 4 years, right? He took off 21. This is third year.
This third year.
Third year. My bad. Hasn't gone the way they expected.
First 2 years they went 9-8. They're right now 2-6.
Yeah.
He did turn them around. They were 3-14 the year before he got there.
He did a great job that first year. They haven't gotten to the next level. Doug is such a product, just a place and time in 17. And I don't know if he'll ever replicate that. I don't know if it's possible to replicate that. It's just one of those magical years when everything that Doug did, everything Howie did, everything that the coordinators did just worked. Everything worked that year. I mean, it was magic. And
he had success in other years.
Success. I mean, they won a playoff game, like we just said, in 18. They were good, but I just don't know if he'll ever get back to, I mean, look, there's not a lot of guys that get to 2.
Not a lot of guys that get to 3 jobs either.
I think Doug is really good at taking a bad team. I mean, he took over a team in shambles in 16. Chip left a mess.
It was a mess. There was some talent.
And God, you look at the mess he inherited in Jacksonville, a coach who didn't even come home with the team.
Yeah.
He replaced
there are a lot of similarities, right?
2 interim coaches. Yeah.
2
college guys.
2 college guys who were bad for the building.
Yeah. Interesting. I think Doug's really good at that, of taking a team in shambles, getting them to believe in themselves, but then getting to that next level. I mean, even that 2018 team what was their record? Were they 9-8? No, there was a 16-game season. I don't know. I will look it up. I mean, they were 9-7. Yeah, and beat the Bears out there in the wild card game, 18-15, double doink. I think he's a good coach, but he's different.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I don't either. He's just, I think, I guess I just think his strength, he has a very specific strength of taking teams that are a mess and getting them to believe in themselves and getting them to be good.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, when the Eagles came back off the Super Bowl run, his button that he pushed in 17 was that, hey, no one believes in us. And it was a heck of a button to push, and the team rallied behind it. That's a much tougher button to push when you win the world championship.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good coach, and that year he was a great coach. But it'll be good to see him. He's a good guy. Career record 62-59-1, so right around 500. Hasn't had many losing seasons, 16, and this year, and obviously 20. Yeah. Anyway, I like Doug. I think I'll never forget 1999 when that guy was just so hated here, and everybody wanted Donovan to play, and Andy made Doug the starter for like the first 5, 6, 7 games, and man, people threw stuff at him. He was so hated. To go from that 18 years later, you're leading a parade down Broad Street. It's crazy.
And this is not his first time coming back here as the Jags head coach, but in a much different circumstance. The last time he was here, like, everyone's feeling really good about him in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
The future's bright. This time it's like, his time is winding down with that franchise. I think everyone knows it. So for him, it'll probably be nice to get a little ovation from the crowd and kind of remember some good times on Sunday.
Go check out the statue. They are 2-2 in their last 4. They beat the Colts. They beat the Patriots.
They played the Packers tough last week.
They did play the Packers tough. It was a 3-point loss, I think. Mm-hmm. But ultimately 2-6. They have the Vikings and Lions after this. So these 3 games, I mean, there was a point where I didn't think he was going to get back from London.
Yeah, well, they played the 2 games out there. If he loses both of those, he probably doesn't stay the head coach.
Probably.
And my theory is if they only played 1 game out there and they lost to the Patriots and then came back, I wonder if he gets fired then. I wonder if it was just like too daunting to make a coaching change while in another country.
It's possible. I think you have to be really bad. I think we talked about it. To get fired in the middle of the season, you have to have a team you've just lost the team.
I mean, earlier in the season, even he admitted the team might need a culture change.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, if a team needs a culture change, the head coach is going to get fired.
Well, they had that game at Buffalo. They lost like 47-3 or something.
Maybe that woke up the team a little bit.
Maybe.
Because they've played a little better since then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big issue for them is that the quarterback has not become a superstar.
Yeah. He's not bad.
No, he's a good quarterback, but he hasn't taken the jump to become one of the best in the league. And when you draft the guy first overall, he was kind of considered a can't miss prospect, and he hasn't been excellent.
No, he hasn't.
Been solid.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. Oh, by the way, before we get into this game, cool to hear Nick Sirianni say that Doug called him.
Yeah.
After Nick got the job, and I don't know how helpful Doug was, but it's still a nice gesture to talk to the new head coach coming in. And then Jalen was very complimentary about Doug's influence on him in 20 when everything was kind of going wrong. But it's very clear he brought up the three. It was Doug, Deuce Staley, and Marty, and then Jeff Stalin, who's still here.
Yeah. Yeah. Jalen likes Marty. He's brought him
a wise old owl.
Yeah. He's brought him up a couple times.
One of my favorite things he's ever said.
Yeah. Yeah. Marty was, and I think Jalen was really fortunate to have Doug, because, he gave him that opportunity those last 4 games. Most of them got to get Sudfeld his work. But I don't think that was coming from Doug. But he gave him those 4 games when Carson was just really bad. And Jalen's mentioned before that having a former quarterback as his first head coach was really important for him and good for him. Yeah.
At Jalen's press conference on Wednesday, I found it fascinating how he explained his experience with Doug Pederson. He said it was the first time he understood how differently people could see football.
That was interesting.
And he said Doug had this way to simplify it and then regurgitate it to him, and it kind of changed his outlook on the game. I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Yeah, which was surprising to hear considering he had like 3 different offensive coordinators at Alabama, then goes to Oklahoma. But yeah, Doug paved the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's get into this game. We don't have to go super deep
on
these matchups. The Jags receivers are really banged up. Christian Kirk is out for the season.
What a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a shame. Brian Thomas has been banged up, a really exciting rookie. And Gabe Davis is banged up too. Both of those guys were limited to start the week. So even if they play, they might be not 100% in this game. So that's not great for the Jags.
No. I mean, Christian Kirk, when he signed that contract, I thought they were nuts. He's been really good.
He's been good.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas looks exciting too.
Yeah, he does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good player.
Evan Ingram, tight end, coming off a big year last season. It's kind of been up and down this year. Had a 100-yard game not that long ago. After seeing Mike Gesicki get some success against the Eagles defense, this is a matchup I'm watching in this one.
Yeah, it's a concern. Evan Ingram is the only Pro Bowler Saquon Barkley ever played with in 6 years with the Giants on offense. He's the only other Pro Bowler they ever had. But yeah, he's pretty solid. It was almost 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, more of just like a receiving tight end. But yeah, he can get some yards.
He's in that Calcaterra mold.
They just traded their left tackle, Cam Robinson, to the Vikings. Christian Darrisaw for the season. So good for the Vikings to get a left tackle. But now the Jags are without their left tackle. Walker Little has played the last couple of games because Robinson had a concussion. He's been okay, but that's an advantage Eagles in this game. Yeah,
we'll see. They had the 1 sack against the Bengals. I think this is a team they could get back to what we saw against the Giants and Browns. Mm-hmm. Multiple.
Yep. And then when the Eagles are on offense, this is not a good pass defense from the Jags. They're 31st in the league. They're starting our old buddy Ronald Darby, who's now banged up as well.
Yeah. How many teams has he been on?
A lot. Kind of a forgotten guy from that Super Bowl team because he missed so much of that year.
Yeah, and he was I'll never forget that day they traded Jordan Matthews, and Carson was like in tears. That was his guy. It was his favorite guy. He's played with Buffalo, the Eagles, Washington, Denver, Baltimore, Jacksonville, 6 teams. He was here the longest, 3 years. He was here through 19.
My favorite Ronald Darby memory, there was a big media party at Super Bowl 52 in the amusement park of the Mall of America.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, all the players were staying in the mall.
Right.
And I'm in a line to get on a ride. Look at the ride. Ronald Darby's on the ride. You forget that he's like a 23-year-old kid. He's like, I'm gonna go on an amusement ride.
He was very young that year. He was 20. He came in the league 21, maybe even 20 when he was drafted. I like the guy because he made the U.S. junior track team in the 200.
Should have known that.
He was a beast. He went to the World Juniors, and I think he was second in the 200. Probably doesn't have that speed anymore. He's only 30. It feels like he's about 35.
Yeah,
but hasn't had an interception since he was here. 2019 was his last interception.
Oh my gosh, that's almost hard to do.
Yeah. So he started 47 games over the last 5 years without an INT.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You'd think that just by chance being out there, you'd get one.
I was looking, like Slay's gone like 14 games without an interception. So I went on the streak finder to see if he had the longest streak among starting cornerbacks. And then Ronald Darby comes up. He's got like 49 straight games.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. They do have two good edge rushers, Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. They're two of their better players on defense. They don't get a ton of pressure from anywhere else. Pretty low pressure rate in general, but those two guys. So Fred Johnson had a nice game against Trey Hendrickson. Give him his flowers. He's got another tough matchup here.
Yeah. And it was funny. Nakobe was asked by somebody yesterday about if Trayvon's jealous because, all the Georgia guys here are 5-2 and they're 2-6. And he said, do you see his contract? He ain't jealous of us or of me, he said, of me. But he said they roomed together. I guess Nolan, Nakobe, Trayvon, and one other guy he mentioned all had a house together. So they're very close. But he's
playing well. A lot of side eyes when they made that pick.
Yeah.
He's playing well now, though.
Very much. Yeah.
And it's not even like justifying the pick because Aiden Hutchinson has been fantastic for the Lions. Unfortunately, he got hurt. But but Trayvon Walker's starting to play well.
He is.
And then Josh Hines-Allen, that'll be the matchup for Fred Johnson this game.
Yeah, and it'll be. I'm curious to see how he builds on what he did last week, and you never quite know what to expect from Fred. He's had some ups and downs, but that was an encouraging performance against a really good player. So you feel a lot better about him. Mm-hmm. And this will be, I guess Mulata's got to set out two more.
At least two more.
At least two more. Well, he's got to set out two more, but Fred's hung in there.
Yeah, I give him credit. And then this is a good linebacking core for the Jags. They have Devin Lloyd, who was a high pick a little bit ago. Yep. And then they have Foye Oluwakin. I nailed that name, I think. Foye Oluwakin. But he's a tackle machine. Yeah. Two good linebackers, and they've also been mixing in a younger linebacker. So that's something to keep an eye on this game. Like, I think the Eagles want to run the football, but those guys make it tough.
Yeah, and I think you can really I'm really curious to see because you can throw on Jacksonville. I think they're pretty stout against the run. So there's been all this talk about the Eagles' identity is running the ball. I think this game, it's going to make sense to throw the ball. When's the last time they threw more than they ran? I guess the Browns game. Mm-hmm. That was close. But I think
in the Browns game, even though they weren't getting big chunks, they were sticking with the run on like early downs, which I think they might try to do in this game as well. Yeah,
and I think it makes sense because when you have a home run hitter, you give him 18 carries, he's going to bust one, most likely. He didn't against the Browns, but I like the concept of it. And you stick to what you do well.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to some questions. If you have one, it's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan that QR code and get your question in that way. First one today is from John. Hey guys, love the pod. Been an Eagles fan as long as I can remember and love being able to stay connected out here in Utah. One of the glaring weaknesses we have seen lately has been the pass rush, particularly from the edge. Any chance we could see how we try and land a big fish from a struggling team, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, etc.? Are there any realistic trade targets out there with salary in mind? Who would you like to see how we target before the deadline?
When he said he was in Utah, I thought he was going to ask about Braden Daniels. Washington had a Jaden Daniels and a Braden Daniels in camp. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Eagles for a while had a JT Woods and an AJ Woods on their practice squad. They have bookend Johnsons at left tackle and right tackle.
Yeah, I don't think they need an edge rusher. I just don't think there's somebody that makes sense for them. We talked about that. And with Howie, there's always going to be the chance he makes a blockbuster move for one of those guys. But I just don't think the need kind of lines up with what it's going to cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Next question from Paul. I was in Cincinnati 20 years ago and was told I had to go to Skyline. Dave's comments could not be more on point. I just don't get it. Question. What purpose does the third receiver serve? I suspect they would not throw too often to a third receiver, even if he created space, since AJ and Devontae are so good, and on any given pass play, one of them is open.
Yeah, it's just another weapon to make you more. I mean, I get the point. And if those guys, one of them is open, you're going to throw it to them. But there are going to be times where neither of them is open. And if Jahan Dotson's open, he should be getting the ball in those situations, which is more than how many catches does he have? 8?
6.
6. Okay, too much. Gave two extra catches. Yeah, I mean, there's a use for a third receiver. I mean, if he's good, yeah, I mean, it's another weapon.
Yeah, I think the expectations have to be kept in check, but it's more than 6 catches.
Yeah, and then look, if a team has 2 good cornerbacks, they're going to be on AJ and Devontae, and that third guy, whether it's a slot guy or an outside guy, whoever the third corner is going to be on Dotson. That's a 16th pick in the draft against the third corner, and it should be a mismatch.
Paul had some non-football stuff I want to do right now.
Sure.
I enjoy Reuben's grammar and articulation comments. My wife and I were watching the Often podcast live and could not stop laughing. 2 comments made by NBA broadcasters irk me. They say a player is playing with aggression when it should be aggressiveness. They say the lead has been cut to single digits when it should be a single digit. Your thoughts?
Oh, that's an interesting one. The one that gets me, this isn't a grammar thing, this is a usage thing, is when they're like, guys say like he had a lot of arch on his shot. It's like, it's not
He had Arch Manning on it.
Yeah. Single digits. I guess technically
it's right. It sounds weird though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think I'll still say digits.
It's like we're so ingrained in our lexicon of words that
yeah.
You know what one has bothered me? It's become like everyone says comfortability now. Isn't it just comfort?
Comfort works.
Yeah.
Comfortability. Nick uses that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like football guys use comfortability and I don't comfort.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
You know what word has started popping up into coach speak is intentional. He's very intentional about his preparation. I don't really understand. I don't understand that usage. I mean, intentional means you do something on purpose.
Yeah.
Like you're preparing on purpose. Does it
have a second meaning?
If it does, I'm unaware. I don't know.
Yeah, no, like deliberate. Deliberate's like a synonym, but that feels more like what we're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Words, man.
Words. They're all we have to go on.
Mason Bennett. Hey, Dave and Rube. I've been watching / listening to the pod since 2021. I learned a lot of context about the Eagles and love the back and forth humor between you guys, especially during disagreements. My question is, although Jalen has played great recently, I still notice that sometimes he doesn't progress through his reads and only stares down his first one. Do you guys see that as a weakness too? Although I believe he will win us a lot of games this year, I'm worried that weakness will come back to haunt us, especially in the postseason. I was curious about your guys' opinion on this.
I think every quarterback does that to some extent, to some degree.
I actually thought he got through his reads a little bit.
I thought
Sunday.
so too.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a problem. I don't think it's been a problem.
Minus the Kenny Gainwell pass.
Yeah. I mean, you still see it pop up here and there, but I don't think it's a huge problem with him right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, if his first and second reads are AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, like you probably live with that a lot of the time.
Yeah, and you can go from 1 to 2 back to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Next question from Jake. Hi guys, Jake here from Ballarat, Australia. I might have butchered that. Big fan of you guys. You're the best at what you do. My question.
Thank you.
is exactly when will James Bradberry be back? What do you think the team will do with him? Would love to hear your thoughts.
It's a great question. I mean, he's got to be healthy by now. He fell down. Like he goes out for practice and falls down, and you don't see him again that was in August. It was in early August, right?
No, it was before the season because he made the team, right?
Wasn't it the day he announced he was going to be a safety?
Oh yeah, but then he came back.
He came back. So it was.
They put him on IR August 29th. So he made the team, and then they put him on IR.
Right. Yeah, I don't have an answer. I don't know.
I don't think honestly, I don't think he factors in. Yeah, they have Sidney Brown now as their third safety. So.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't. It's just a matter of. I mean, I guess they're just going to keep him and let the cap hit kind of dissipate and keep him on IR. He gets paid, and
maybe at a certain point they activate his window and let him practice. And I don't know. Think any team would trade for James Bradberry?
No.
Howie's working those phones. He's healthy. He's ready.
I mean, I'm sure Howie would take a conditional 10, but yeah, he's been in the locker room a couple of days.
Every once in a while, he'll pop in.
Yeah.
Next question, and every time I see him, I go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, exactly. Like
this guy he started almost every game for them last year at cornerback.
Started 16 games.
Yeah. Wow. Matt. Hey, Dave and Rube, love the podcast. Have been listening since Rube knows. I'm from Chester County, but have been in Dallas now for 10 years. My question is for Dave. Okay. I was at the Bengals game too, and assume you heard the stadium announcer repeatedly call him Cooper DeJean. And this isn't the first time we've heard that. What do you think we have to do to get out word that this kid isn't named after mustard?
I love it. Yeah, if he keeps playing the way he is, people are going to know how to say his name.
Yeah, I mean, he was like
a second-round
pick.
A
well thought of draft. Like people thought he might go in the first round. It is kind of crazy.
Yeah, 8th pick in the second round.
Yeah, so. I get some of the other ones, but like
guy gets picked in the 7th round, you mispronounce his name, but yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you know, those stadium announcers, they should go over every possible questionable name with a PR guy before the game. Mm-hmm. And I guess he didn't.
A lot of names on the roster.
Yeah, but a lot of Williams and Browns and Smiths. And,
true.
You know, there might be 4 or 5 names that you're asking about, maybe 3. Yeah.
Any name that's given you particular bother in your career that like you just have trouble?
Halapulavati.
That was pretty easy to say.
It's kind of, but it took a while. It took me a while to get Halapulavati. But I don't think so.
Okay. Next question from Humam. Sending this email from Rochester, New York, where I'm working through college. I'm a 21-year-old college student and found the podcast during the 2021 season. Really appreciate the episodes as they've helped me through commutes and studying. My question is regarding the Eagles' home stadium. A lot of NFL teams have been working on new stadiums: Bills, Bears, Titans, Jags, Browns, Commanders. The Eagles had a 31-year stay at the Vet, with the current stay at the Link being 21 years so far. Do you envision the Eagles making plans to move stadiums soon, similar to how the Sixers are planning to move to Center City? Along with this, would the Eagles ever put a dome on the stadium to try to host a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't think you can retrofit the Link with a dome. Maybe
no, I don't think so.
But I think it would have to be a new stadium. I actually asked Jeff Lurie about that. It's probably been a few years now, because the Link was getting to the point where it was like 12 years short of the Vet. Now I think the Link is in a lot better shape than the Vet was after 22 years.
Yeah. I mean, the Vet was in bad shape after 10 years.
Yeah. It was, you know, what's crazy is that the Vet and Arrowhead opened the same year and had the same architect, same design team. Kansas City kept up on, you know, they take care of that stadium and it's fine. But, I don't think so, because they make so much money from that stadium. They have the suites are all in place. I mean, I think teams build new stadiums so they can have suites, basically, just get revenue, and they can host other events. The Eagles do that. They have a lot of stuff over there. I mean, concerts, where they have a motorcycle thing.
I mean, they could do that with a new stadium.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a pressing need for a new stadium just because I don't know how it would generate more revenue or enough new revenue to justify it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the link is like held up pretty well,
and they've done a lot. I mean, they've added new like bars downstairs, and like every year you go in, there's like a new.
Although it's funny because I don't see a lot of the stadium. You know what I mean? Like I go to the field, I go to the press box, and I go to the locker room, and that's pretty much it. So I think fans might be in a better position to tell us how the concessions are, the bathrooms, the tunnels, and
the tunnels are really nice. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard. I don't hear.
Concourse was the word I was looking for.
Oh, okay.
Tunnels, yeah.
Concourse. They got to get some new music in there because the music sucks.
I love the music there.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. My favorite songs.
I drove my car into a bridge. What is that song?
Yeah.
God, it's just so bad. It's like when the defense comes on the field and like you want to hear like Slayer or something, you want to hear Black Sabbath, and they're playing like Dua Lipa, whatever her name is. They're playing dance pop.
Dua Lipa.
When the defense comes out, it's like, oh, let's play Chapel Rowan. Like, what are you doing? Play.
It's funny in Cincinnati. They play Welcome to the Jungle so much. It's an absurd amount to hear one song. And I get it. It's the jungle. They're the Bengals. I get it. Man, they play that song a lot.
Really?
Yeah. Loud, too.
I was somewhere yesterday, and the same song came on 4 times within half an hour.
What song?
It's a great song. It's called Colors by Black Pumas.
Okay.
I won a Grammy a couple years ago. I saw them at Non-Com upstairs at World Cafe, and they were incredible. But there's not a lot of songs I want to hear 4 times in the span of about 18 minutes.
Do you ever like get a little earworm though, and you just want to hear the song again and again?
I once drove from New York to Philly and just listened to the same song. Yeah, the entire trip.
What was it?
It was a song from a Robert Pollard solo album. Question Girl, All Right.
Miley Cyrus, Wrecking Ball. Is you screaming at the top of your lungs?
I saw Hannah Montana here at the Wells Fargo Center. Yeah, but because her first record's pretty good. Yeah, it's probably one of my 10 favorite.
Okay. One more question here, and I want to get to this one today.
She's actually really talented. Have you seen her cover of that Dolly Parton song?
Jolene? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, she's talented.
She got a great voice.
I want to get to this one, though.
Yeah.
This is from Tony. LaShawn McCoy holds the Eagles' single-season rushing record with 1,607 yards.
Yes, he does.
Do you think Saquon breaks it this year? His yards per game average plus a 17th game, but I wonder if he'll just let the young guys eat and come up short. Now, I want this question today because LaShawn McCoy goes into the Eagles Hall of Fame on Sunday, so it was timely.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that they asked that. What's the person who asked that question?
Tony.
So I actually made I in my observations for Sunday, I wrote about that, and I came up with the 5 best. I took the angle of, is he going to have the best season ever by an Eagles running back? Because when the season length changes, it kind of, but he's on pace for 1,860 rushing yards, 2,117 scrimmage yards, which wouldn't be a record. Because his receiving yards just haven't been quite where you'd expect them. But Shady that year, he had 1,607. He had like over 500 receiving yards. But I think he will break the record. It's just, it's yards per game.
If he plays every game the rest of the way, he would need to average 84 to do it.
He's averaging 125 scrimmage yards a game, which is a good number. But Westbrook averaged 140 his big year in 2007 when he led the NFL in scrimmage yards.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have a list of the top 5 running back seasons in Eagles history. And
how many?
The top 5.
Oh, I thought you said 25. I was like, oh my gosh.
No, I'm not that crazy. That would be going down to like Anthony Toney, like 23rd. They haven't had a lot of great running backs. They've just had guys who stayed here a long time.
How many of those 5 are Bryce Brown?
I was doing, was I looking up yesterday? Saquon's rushing average the last 2 games is like 7.8. Mm-hmm. It's the second highest in Eagles history over a 2-game span.
Bryce Brown ruins every stat.
Bryce Brown ruins every stat, every running stat. It's like, I don't want to use the stat because like if it's the highest since Steve Van Buren, great. If it's the highest since Bryce Brown, no, I'm not going to write it.
That's funny. All right. If you have a question for us, it's eagle-eye@nbcuni.com. The QR code is there. Send us questions during the game again, or comments. I always like to see those. You can see the flow of the game. They got off to a slow start. We're getting the sky is falling questions, and then they turn it around. All the questions change. I like that. You don't need to give me a prediction by the numbers, but I'm assuming you're picking the Eagles in this game.
Yeah, and when they started this 4-game stretch against the Browns, Giants, Bengals, and Jags, I really thought they had a chance to go 4-0. And kind of, I thought it was going to be a really significant telling stretch, and I do think they'll go 4-0. Jags are still playing hard, and they do some things
If they were to lose this game, what do you think happens? What would lead to it?
I think it would be Trevor Lawrence just having a really big game. But yeah, it's going to be hard to do without Christian Kirk. But I think that's their path to winning. He's talented, and he's had some really big games. And I think the Eagles defense has been really good the last 3 weeks, but I'm still not at the point where I feel like they're going to shut everybody down. We haven't seen enough to know if this is exactly who they are. So this will go a long way in telling us. But I think if they win this thing and get to 6-2, now you're going into these next 2 games, which are challenging games, feeling pretty good about where they are.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it for Rube. I'm Dave. This has been the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you after the game on Sunday.